I'm super glad that I got this email because I feel like I left the segment and I was a little bit unsure also and a little confused when we originally did it, right? And this was about the difference between discrimination and a preference. So I get an email, and we were gone last week. We were on vacation, so I think a lot of people were going through past podcasts and listening to past shows, right? So it says, hey, Bert, welcome back from vacation. I was listening to some past podcasts, and I heard you get a little S word for saying you prefer to date fit women. I think you tried to make the point that how is it any different than most women wanting to date tall men? That argument felt shut down to me pretty quickly, but I would argue that as a general rule, weight can mostly be changed where height cannot. I remember someone on Twitter calling you fat phobic, but I had no context at the time. Anyway, as a thought starter, I'd love to hear all your takes on which is discriminatory and which is just preference, because I think that's where we went with the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. So let's go through a couple of these, all right? And the conversation that he is referring to is just that. Yeah, we were talking about preferences, and I'm not even sure how it initially came up, but we were talking about what we're attracted to. Yeah. And as I've been working out my entire life, health's been very health conscious, grew up in California, and my preference is to date somebody that is fit, right? And some people called me fat phobic, which I don't even really know what that means. This is like when I'm around fat people, it's not like I'm like, ah!
Right.
Oh my God, I'm so scared!
That is not fat phobia.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Okay. It's like riding the tower. So it simply is my preference. And I'm a little guy. I'm 5'4", right? So I would prefer to date women that don't make me feel very small. Just my preference. But I was called fat phobic. And then we started going through and we started talking about race. Is it discrimination or is it a preference? So I think that's what he's getting back to, right? Mm-hmm. You look like you had something to say.
I was just going to tell you, I think everyone's a little bit fat phobic. It's a deep bias that's rooted in you. It's not being scared of fat people. It's just if you've seen a fat person and thought, oh, they shouldn't be eating that. Or I look too fat. And like it's an inherent bias and some discrimination against people who are fat.
All right. So his list includes these. So is this discriminatory or is it just a preference? Would you date a smoker?
No.
No.
No. No.
Mm-mm. Yes.
You would?
I did.
You did?
For like 12 years. And then we got married.
Is that considered a prejudice, discrimination, or just a preference?
I think it's a preference.
It hits me as a preference.
But kind of both. It's hard because smoking's an addiction. Mm-hmm. Like at some point you become addicted to it. So yeah, I think you can prefer not to be around cigarette smoke, but I don't dismiss somebody based on that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's a preference because I know that's going to affect their health history down the line, and that's just not something that I'm comfortable having to deal with since I don't smoke.
So let me get back to something you just said. Eliminating somebody from dating just because of this one thing you consider discriminatory.
I wouldn't call it discriminatory, but like I do feel that, I think smokers are addicts. I think for something like that, it's if they could just snap their fingers and be done with it, I think half of them would, be like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And watching my husband battle being a smoker and a heavy smoker and his journey just like quitting, and he has completely quit, but it's been a rough journey. It was difficult. So for me, I sit there and I'm like, yeah, I don't like the smell of cigarette smoke. I don't like being around it. I have asthma. It's not great for me. But I also empathize with people who are kind of stuck and it's hard to kick.
So if there are women that are like, no, I will not date anybody under 5'10", immediately eliminated, right? We even took the call from a woman saying, look, if I'm in a bar and you're under 5'10", I think she said, I'm not even paying attention to you. So is that discrimination or is that just a preference?
Can it not be both?
I think it's discriminatory, but then you have to look at where it's rooted. It's so multifaceted. Like, it used to be the whole point of women being trained, which is what we are to like tall men, is so that women can feel small and petite and protected around them, which goes back again. We don't want to feel like, oh, I'm a monster coming at you. I want to feel dainty and petite next to my man. I mean, I think it's BS. And I think anyone who dismisses someone based on height that's BS.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I've experienced this myself. All right, so Mo, let me throw this one to you. If somebody says, look, you know what? Black dudes are just not my thing.
It's a preference to me.
It's a preference.
Doesn't bother me at all. Like, I don't take it personally that people like what they like. I think everybody should be free to date whoever they choose or whatever they choose. If black men are not your thing, if someone said that, like, I wouldn't internalize it. It wouldn't feel personal to me. It would just be like, okay, they just don't want to date black men.
Abby, if you had a friend that said, you know what, off the table, I'm not attracted to black guys, would you immediately think racist or would you think preference?
I think everybody's knee-jerk reaction is to go, oh, that's super racist. But the difference between preference and discrimination is whether or not something's unjust or prejudice-based. So it's like, okay, well, why aren't you? Is it just because you're not attracted to that specific person and they just don't do it for you? Or is it because of some kind of other bias that you have?
That's my question would be like, well, why? So, and I think your answer lies in the why.
So if
like,
the why
if you
is
just like pasty white guys and that's your thing and that's what turns you on, well, then that's a preference.
So if it's simply the aesthetic of it.
If your daddy was in the KKK, that's discrimination.
Okay, I think that's pretty definitive.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
think we're done with it. We can end there.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Okay.
The Bert Show.
So first, thanks for watching. Second, you like what you just watched? That just scratches the surface. Get The Bert Show on any podcast platform. We're so good.